Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jarod Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Just
I have received an email.
Don't forget to email the show at heeltotheface@hotmail.com.
Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah, new era. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya.
Tweet us using the handle at Heel to the Face.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jarod.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
Live from the Galaxy Communications Studio in downtown Syracuse, New York, this is the Heel to the Face podcast for the 3rd week of May 2017. I am joined, as always, it's hard to say that nowadays, but as always, with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. On Twitter, you can find him at Icebreaker21. And today, we are once again without Paul Boy Green Esden, Boy Green 25 on Twitter, and myself, Jarod, just Jarod Wicks, are in the studio. So it's just us two today. A lot to talk about. Raw, SmackDown, the status of Braun Strowman, getting you ready for Backlash this Sunday night. And let's start off with the status of Braun Strowman, an injury that many thought would keep him out of action for 6 weeks, and now it looks like he's going to be out of action for 6 months. So the question is, where does that leave us in the WWE world? We obviously went into WrestleMania for a different aspect than last year in the sake of everybody was healthy. WrestleMania 32, remember, that was a WrestleMania where everybody was out on injury. John Cena, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton. But now after WrestleMania, it's starting to catch up with us, and it's probably worse because at least WrestleMania is a very highly built-up program. So even if it's not your top level superstars, you're still excited for WrestleMania. But I need my top level superstars to get excited for Extreme Rules or Great Balls of Fire, which we thought was going to be Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar. Now, obviously, that is out of the question. But what do you see, Brandon, with Monday Night Raw going forward? We now know we have a 5-way elimination match coming up at Extreme Rules.
Honestly, I think, the competitors we have, Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Bray Wyatt, and Roman Reigns. Very good contenders. I've seen the Roman Reigns Brock thing before. Same thing, Seth Rollins. I'm looking at 3 guys in particular. Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, or Bray Wyatt. Those are the 3 guys I feel should be the next
I don't
opponent.
know why everybody loves to see Finn Balor. Everybody is talking about seeing Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar. They've been talking about it forever. I know I see all these mock-ups on Instagram and Twitter in the wrestling community about Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar. And to me personally, I don't understand the hype of that because they are not the same style of wrestling. If you hyped up Finn Balor versus Rey Mysterio or something, I could see that. Or Finn Balor versus a Randy Orton. But why does everybody want to see Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar? This is a titan, a monster man versus a actual skilled technical wrestler. Where that would be contrasting styles that I don't think would actually go well.
It's they're going to use, if they use Finn Balor, they're going to use him as the underdog. That's where I see it. But here's my thing. I could see them doing putting Finn Balor in that spot. Ideally, who I want to see, and I don't see it happening. Maybe the writers throw a curveball at us. I want to see Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar.
That's what I would like to see.
That
is one of the matches that I could actually see. And more importantly, Samoa Joe, he's like AJ Styles in the sense of what people don't realize you got to do. Finn Balor, he's still pretty young, and I understand he was in the indie circuit for a long time, but Samoa Joe is really, you got to strike now. He's not Bray Wyatt. He's not Roman Reigns. His career is on the downward.
Yeah,
he has less time in front of him than he does behind him. So things like Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar, you got to get to those as soon as you can. And that is because while Samoa Joe is not as large in stature, like height-wise,
he's a
as
big
Brock
guy,
Lesnar,
though.
He's still a big guy. He's not Finn Balor. He's not doing backflips through tables off the top rope like a Hardy Boy.
It's going to be
He's
brawl.
a heavyweight.
That would be a brawl. If that match happens, which you and I are in agreement on that, I want to see that. Samoa Joe's not getting any younger. Brock Lesnar's not getting any younger. They're on the back end of the 30s, so they are getting close to that big 4-0. So you got to take advantage of it now. They honestly, the WWE, I felt like in the beginning took too long to bring Samoa Joe up in the first place from NXT. I feel like that was drawn out too long, especially because he's one of those guys where he's getting closer to 40. Yes, we see a lot of guys, still doing good things over 40, like Chris Jericho. But you gotta push him up as quick as possible, and I'm glad they finally did eventually. If I'm the writers of WWE, I'm putting that match together. I think that would just be one hell of a match.
I think Bray Wyatt is another good match because of the fact that they're the two type of competitors that can look each other eye to eye. And I know there was big hype last year, I think going into the Roadblock WWE special, that it was supposed to be Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar before WrestleMania. It was not that, because then Bray Wyatt got hurt, even though they used Bray Wyatt at Roadblock and they used him at WrestleMania. He didn't get an official match. That's why Eric Rowan was in that match versus The Rock, because of his injury. So we had a chance to almost see it last year. This is another chance to see it again. And like I said, what I like about WWE is what Brock Lesnar said a couple years ago when he said WWE is like UFC, is like boxing, is like any of this sense in the marketing aspect. Absolutely. That they're there to sell fights. Obviously, they get more longevity out of the fighters because they're scripted, but they're still there to sell fights. And I think when you can sell Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt is the fact that these two can look each other eye to eye. They can stand toe to toe. You don't get that with Finn Balor. Finn Balor reminds me of Rey Mysterio versus, Big Show or something like that. Not to that grand extent, but in an extent of it's not what eye to eye, toe to toe. It's the Warriors and the Cavs. People want to see them coming up in the NBA Finals. They want to see them go undefeated in the playoffs because then you have them match up heavyweight to heavyweight.
Not to jump too far off topic. You want to see that the NBA Finals?
Well, my thing
I
is
want to see the underdog.
We're going to see it.
I know.
So if we're going to see it, we might as well see them both go undefeated into the matchup, because then it's like the heavyweight, like who's going to give. That's what everybody. And Vince McMahon loves selling the Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar,
which that's honestly that
the
might
Brock
be
Lesnar versus Goldberg.
That might
he
be
loves
where it
selling
goes.
that where two people can look eye to eye. Brock Lesnar versus a Rey Mysterio. Brock Lesnar versus a Seth Rollins. While Seth Rollins, great wrestler, again, they're not looking eye to eye. That's kind of why they had Seth Rollins when he beat Brock Lesnar, per se, years ago at WrestleMania 31. It was like a setup. He had the run of the ring. Kind of, he didn't come out and defeat Brock Lesnar because even Vince McMahon knows that's not really too believable. He doesn't really want to see a Seth Rollins takedown of Brock Lesnar. But a Bray Wyatt, now that is a character that can stand like a Goldberg toe-to-toe. Well, I'm not saying it would be the best match in the world. I just feel that would be kind of, if you're going to get rid of Braun Strowman, because that's what Braun Strowman's not going to face Brock Lesnar because he's the best technical wrestler in WWE. He's going to face him because he's a guy that can match up to Brock Lesnar and look up to and look next to him, not look up to him. And I think that's
honestly, you might look down at him a little bit.
You kind of get that replacement with a Bray Wyatt. So I feel like a Seth Rollins and a Finn Balor. See, Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, those two I want to see go against each other. That would be a kind of a dream match.
That's going to happen at some point. The thing that sucks about this, though, Braun gets hurt at the wrong time. It really does. I was so looking forward to this.
Everybody gets
match.
hurt. Look at Finn Balor last year.
I know.
He wins the Universal Championship when people were like, okay, they better give it to Finn Balor, and then he better have a long run at it because it's a brand new title, and you got to give it legitimacy. And it's like opening up a casino and going bankrupt the next day. It's literally like they just invented this championship belt, and you literally already have a transitional champion.
To your point, though, obviously the injury was caused in that match where he defeated Seth Rollins. I do want to see Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. I do want to see that at some point where they go into some sort of feud. Because, they can't just leave that Finn Balor injury caused, quote-unquote, by Seth Rollins in that match. You can't just leave that just hanging. They're going to build that somewhere.
No, now that's the match I want to see. I want to see another Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. But speaking of Raw, what was your takeaway from Raw being a lot of singles match, not a lot of six-man tags, not a lot of waste, I guess, like in previous weeks. A lot of singles matches. The Intercontinental Championship was on the line. We did have a tag team match here or there, but for the most part,
that was a
your main event was
match.
a single match between two great guys in Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt. You had a singles match for the IC title I just mentioned, The Miz versus Dean Ambrose.
What did you think about the finish of that, by the way? Like, why? What was the point of? Okay, so Miz goes and tries to cheat, but it turns around and backfires, and then Dean Ambrose gets disqualified. I mean, do you think are they going to build that as like, oh, Dean Ambrose just kind of lost his cool for a second? Like, how do you play that out now?
Well, I don't think they're ever trying to sell you that Dean Ambrose is keeping his composure.
I'm not saying like lose his cool, but like kind of like they're not setting it up where he intentionally did it. Maybe he just like lost, like maybe like a lapse in judgment or something. I don't know, because he's kind of a knucklehead anyways. Like, how do you build that? I just thought that was very peculiar. How, okay, Miz wins the match, but Dean doesn't. Dean keeps the title. It wasn't a clean finish. Like, don't you usually? I mean, yes, Dean is dirty deeds. Dean Ambrose, the Ambrose Asylum, but why do you set it up that way, though? That was kind of peculiar to me.
I think they're just trying to set up.
You think they're stretching it?
I mean, obviously, WWE, especially this time of year, is just all about stretching everything.
Yeah.
Everything is just about how long we can stretch it out. I mean, forget the Braun Strowman injury. There's just so much filler between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. More filler in that time than there is all year round. Like we mentioned on previous shows, SummerSlam to Survivor Series, much quicker. Survivor Series to Royal Rumble, even quicker than that. Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. We're looking at 2-3 month spans. But from WrestleMania to SummerSlam, that's your longest span. You don't have the King of the Ring anymore, which was another one of the big pay-per-views you kind of put in there.
I wish they would come back with that.
I wish they, not just that I wish they would, you look at things and you don't understand why that they don't have a King of the Ring. They need pay-per-views to fill. So why wouldn't you have a pay-per-view like the King of the Ring? Which the best part about the King of the Ring is it already makes itself. The Royal Rumble is that perfect pay-per-view because I don't know who's going to be in the Royal Rumble next year. I don't know who's going to be hurt. I don't know who's going to be up on the rise. I don't know who's going to be in line for WrestleMania. But more importantly, I know that if I bought tickets for Royal Rumble 2025 right now, I can tell you one match on that card. The Royal Rumble. And that's what the WWE, they can't bank on a lot of things. We're learning this with Braun Strowman. You can't bank on these superstars. They get hurt. So a pay-per-view like the King of the Ring is perfect because you sell the King of the Ring that it's going to be this tournament. You already have the matches built. You're just going to plug in who's available. You don't have to then create feuds.
It's similar to the Survivor Series matches, too.
To a point. It's similar. It's even easier in the Survivor Series because at least with the Survivor Series, you got those teams. You got to have some sort of cohesiveness and a reason why these guys are the good guys, these guys are the bad guys, why they're wrestling. The King of the Ring, you can just say who's not hurt, and you can throw their names at a dartboard, and they can have each other face each other. How many times in King of the Ring we see matches that don't make any sense storyline wise? It's just part of a tournament. It's just like the NCAA basketball tournament.
Exactly.
It's just this person's going to face this person, and you're going to be interested because it's the King of the Ring. You could take all those matches on Monday Night Raw. You could have Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus. You wouldn't buy that on a pay-per-view. Why would they even fight? You make that round one of the King of the Ring, you're essentially paying to watch that match. You're essentially paying to watch Neville versus Austin Aries in a King of the Ring qualifying match. It not just was a filler for pay-per-views, but it was a good filler for Raw before the pay-per-view because, again, you had the qualifying matches. What's a qualifying match for the King of the Ring? The whole thing is essentially the large tournament. I know in some years when they actually had good storylines and the King of the Ring might only take up 1 or 2 matches on the card, they would have the King of the Ring tournament on Raw or SmackDown. But you saw those years where they didn't have anything going for them, 93, 94. 8 out of the 9 matches were the King of the Ring. You had 8 King of the Ring matches that didn't need a storyline, were just random matches, and a championship match. I can book that pay-per-view. WWE can book that pay-per-view every single month.
That's easy money.
You just got to book Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton. What else for the pay-per-view? An 8-man tournament that means essentially nothing. And what was cool about it for a short period of time is it was like the Royal Rumble, and the winner of the King of the Ring got the title shot at SummerSlam.
They should bring it back.
And so, not just they should bring it back because I enjoyed it, but it's such an easy idea. Why wouldn't you have it?
It's not like you're stretching things out as much either.
They brought it back a few times as like a SmackDown supplement, like a tournament that took place on Raw. But why would you not have it as a pay-per-view event? I don't understand. I mean, it's just not rocket science here. It's a pay-per-view which people are wanting to give you the money to go see, and it takes absolutely nothing from you. If somebody knocked on my door and said, "Can I pay you $10 to peek my head in your house?" Who would lose there? I'd say, "Here you go. Here, give me $10. There's my house." I mean, that's WWE. I want to pay you $50 to go to a pay-per-view which takes nothing from you to create.
It's true.
The reason, and it's got all this tradition. That's why the King of the